All right, let's get started. Welcome to testRigor's tips and tricks session for test automation. Today, we are going to talk about testing tables. And Artem Golubev is going to lead the session. He's the CEO and founder of testRigor. There'll be plenty of time to ask your questions, but you can put them in the chat or you can put them in the questions, and we'll be happy to answer those. It's a half-hour session, so it's shorter. Next week, we have automating form testing. We do these every Wednesday at this time. And then the following week is testing drag and drop functionality. So with that, Artem, take it away.
Hello and welcome. And I'll be very quick today. I'll be showing you a demo. So first, I would like to remind everyone that what testRigor is. It is using plain English from end user's perspective to automate tests, and testRigor executes that plain English, emulating how manual testers would execute those tests. On that, let me start sharing my screen. And for today, I will be, let me kick off new table. So I will be automating this table as public page. You can find it at testRigor as simple as table 1. If anyone would like me to use anything else, happy to do so. We're all the same, and I'll just get right into that. There are two ways how you can deal with tables on testRigor. Number one way is using our relative locations. You can, for example, if you were to delete this row containing this unique ID, so we need to click on this delete button. We can basically locate it based on this unique ID and this column name, or we can use specific table construct where we can basically refer to rows and columns with table. On that, let me copy this one. Let's create working with tables, and we will not create any automated tests, and we'll create, oh, wow. We'll create new test suite. And now let's do both of those ways. So basically what we do, first of all, we'll click on this second icon, second button, in relation to those actions and SPK tool. So first of all, let's use relative locations first. So let's call it relative locations. And we will click on second button, completely below actions and on the right of SPK tool. So this is one way of doing it. While it is executing, let me create another way of doing it. And that is table language. And that would be a click table, second button in the context of table at column actions and row containing SPK tool. Okay, so let's see how did the first one go through. Like this is how it works. So basically it highlighted the actions in here, SPK2 it here. It highlighted what's the intersection of those would be. And then I clicked on a button and same thing is in here. So there are two ways of how you can refer to elements in the table. Here you can use table language, similar to how it is outlined in here, or you can use relative locations. So now one small thing I would like to point out in here is I didn't just say below actions, I say completely below actions. And that is because even though by default below means completely below, means whatever is really below that. However, if we do double reference when I say below and on the right, the assumption by default is the one section which is below referring to a section in some kind of a section in the form, and therefore it becomes roughly below, meaning that somewhere below the cut line, which we discussed in the part related to relative locations. Now, therefore, to make it completely below, meaning that it's only should consider something that is that goes below that and not somewhere to the right or to the left, you have to specify completely to indicate that it is not a section. It is something you would like to intersect with. But other than that, it is below and on the right, and it will continue to function the same way regardless how tests are rendered. All right. So that is the demo. Any questions? Right, so what is the difference between completely below and roughly below? So excellent question. If you go to documentation, it's a public page. You have reference to it from testRigor landing page. You can always look it up. And we go to referencing locations section in here. It goes into a lot of details of what are the ways to reference location, and then there are selecting elements in reference to other elements. And here we describe what are different modifiers to the locations. And completely means that whatever is below should be overlapping with at least 30%. So you know what, let me give you some kind of an example of, let's say, safe A. And what would you like to say here? So we want to click sign in to add below featured items and roughly below featured items. Sign in to, okay. So we'll go here and like this will be completely below, which should be a default behavior. So click I need to add that completely below featured items. So that would be completely below. And if we add roughly below, in this particular case, there will be no difference. However, you will see how it is different based on the outline. All right. Let's give it a second. While it is executing, I'll do the explanation. So if we are saying completely below, that will only apply to something which is exactly below here. The intersection should be at least 30% to be considered completely below. However, if we're saying roughly below, what we do is we find this element, and below this element, we get a cutoff line. And would anything which is below that cutoff line would be considered roughly below. That would apply also to this button, to this button, to this button, to this, and this. So all of that would be roughly below. However, only one button would be completely below. And I think, so this is, this is it with highlights. As you can see, we found the element. We highlighted what does it mean to be completely below. This is a completely below option, which is the default. Usually, if you use just one reference, it found only that. And if we do a roughly below, let's give it a second. So as you can see here, so if, in this case, roughly below means much larger area, because we found an element, and roughly below is anything which is below the cutoff line for this element. So that is the difference between roughly below and completely below.
All right. So is there anything about the way we do it versus other tools that you want to talk about, Artem, like in terms of specific?
Yes, so like this approach would work regardless of how your tables are implemented. So they might be implemented using divs, or it wouldn't be tables at all. You just want to reference by one or multiple elements, and it would work as soon as your specification still stays true from end user's perspective. That is a stark contrast to literally any other tool on the market, where it would rely on details of implementation and basically like as soon as those details of implementation fail, it will fail. So let me show you an example again. So if you remember, so this is a table which we looked at. If you look to highlight in here, we have like if you were to refer to it in let's say Selenium or something like that, you will be relying on some kind of XPath. Of course, instead of tr2, it would be the tr found by this ID in second column, which would make a little bit complex XPath, but you can make it work. However, if, for example, tomorrow engineers just update the library which renders the tables, it looks almost identical. However, if you look into implementation, now it is based on divs. And it looks like this. As you can see, stark contrast to like previous one, it's all divs, and there is no even stable good way to refer to that element in the first place. It will be very, very fragile because everything here in the div, there's no table structure to rely on. So imagine if you were to write a test in XPaths based on table structure, and then tables would be migrated to divs. Basically, that would mean all of the tests would be broken. And this is what testRigor helps to avoid.
All right. Is there any other questions? The next session is going to be on automating form testing next Wednesday at this time. And it doesn't look like there are any questions. So thank you, everybody, for joining. And until next week, I'll see you then.
Thank you. Bye-bye.